Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And I love the fact that you've chosen to take some time out of that valuable day to spend it with us. And you're going to be glad you did, because today we are going to be talking about negotiating hope. And we could all use more of that in today's world. And we're going to be chatting with Debra Parker Oliver. So welcome, Debra. It's great to have you.
Hi. Good to see you.
And for those of you who may not know her, Debra is the Ira Kodner Professor of Research and Supportive Care at Washington University. She is certainly not shy to a high achievement. She's got a Master's of Social Work and she's got a PhD in Rural Psychology from the University of Missouri. She was a hospice social worker and administrator for over 20 years. She got her doctorate and continued to her commitment to improve hospice care. She's got over 200 peer-reviewed articles. And if you know anything, if any of you took psychology in university, you know how tough it is to get those peer-reviewed articles. And she's got over 200 of them. And I'd love, Debra, if you could share with us what inspired you to write your award-winning book, Legacies from the Living Room.
Well, my husband and I went through this journey of his cancer, his terminal illness, and his death. And as I did public speaking about it and taught in the classrooms, people asked for more details. And so I decided, let's give it a try. I had to learn how to write memoir, had never done that before, and decided to do that and share the journey with the world. That was our commitment.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, so beautiful. And if you don't mind just spending a moment to share, because I found that the decision that you and your husband made about how you were going to handle his diagnosis, to me, it's a hopeful decision. It's about embracing life. So if you don't mind sharing with our listeners what choice you made when you were confronted.
You know, you're given this diagnosis, and the first thing that the doctors want to talk about is treatment.
Yeah,
And the first thing most people say is, well, what can I do about it? How much time do I have? How can I buy more time?
yeah,
Everything is about extending life.
yeah,
And so they said, without treatment, you probably have 6 months or less. And I know that that usually means the or less
yeah,
part. And so we really seriously did our homework, and we called. We're lucky we had experts in palliative medicine that I knew throughout the country. And I called and said, here's what we've got. What do you think?
yeah,
And we got the best advice from a palliative care oncologist who said, here's the deal. You start out and you take some of that treatment to buy yourself time. It's okay to do that.
yeah,
Buy yourself a little bit of time and see if it works.
yeah,
And remember, you can stop at any point. Well, sure enough, the tumor started shrinking, but also David started having side effects that were keeping us from doing what we wanted.
yeah,
He ended up taking the first round, and we worked in between those side effects, but it gave us time to think about what is really important.
yeah,
Are the side effects worth whatever extra time you get?
yeah,
And then we negotiated that with the doctors. What kind of time are we going to get for this kind of dose? And at one point he said, that's enough.
yeah,
The side effects compound themselves. So the first time is the best you're ever going to be. And then after you have it, the first treatment, you're half as good as you were, and then a fourth, and it just diminishes along the way.
yeah,
And so then we started challenging, what do you really want? And my daughter was really good about this. He said, I want to die well. I want to die. Well, what does that mean, Dad? I don't understand I mean, sounds great. Those are great words, but what exactly does that mean? And we just kept saying to him, give us something that helps us know what it means.
yeah,
So he took the word hope and defined exactly what he wanted, meaning he wanted to die at home. That was really, really important, not in a hospital.
yeah,
He wanted to be surrounded by others, pain-free,
yeah,
and excited until the end.
yeah,
That's what the word hope meant, rather than I want to live as long as I can,
yeah,
or I want to live for this or that. And that definition is unique to everybody.
yeah,
And you have to really decide, what does that mean to you?
yeah.
What is most important? Some people, it is time. Other people, it's about the quality of that time and what bucket list
Yeah.
you get to do in the meantime.
Yeah. I love that you guys chose quality of life over quantity of life. And then you guys traveled. Is that right? You just checked off all those things on your bucket list and just spent that time embracing joy, as I understand it. I mean, what a
That's the
beautiful.
irony in choosing quality. We got quantity
Yeah.
because we didn't have the side effects.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and he never had any more chemotherapy after the first round. They always want to offer you more when
Yeah.
it comes back. Second round therapies are not as effective. And he
Yeah.
goes, no, remember I said I've had all I need. And so we had 42 months when we thought we would have 6.
Yeah. Wow.
And based upon it, during that chemotherapy cycle, we would make our decisions to travel or not based upon every 3-month PET scans.
Yeah.
And if we got a clean scan, we knew we had 3 months.
Yeah.
So we'd pack in what we could, and then we'd wait and we'd get the scan, and then we'd get the chemo, and then he'd be down for a while, and then on the good weeks, out we'd go and back we'd come. But that's negotiating what matters,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
just sitting around and being in clinics all the time.
Well, and I love it. And I mean, it seems like such a brave choice to make, but I bet for you, looking back with the benefit of hindsight now, I mean, it was the easier choice in many ways, right? To be able to just embrace that pure joy of time
No
together where you
question.
can, rather than all the angst and agony that often goes with people in hospitals. I think it's
Our most miserable days were the days that we had to spend in the
yeah,
hospital or in the clinics. I
yeah.
mean, and the most marvelous days were when we were on the mountaintops. I mean,
Oh,
clearly.
oh. So beautiful. Now, the subtitle of your book is called the love grief equation. Can you explain what is that?
So the love grief equation says that the more you love, the more you grieve. And grief is a price of love. And the way you manage that when you have a lot of grief is to try to focus on the love part
Yeah,
and remember that, grief is the price.
yeah,
And so enjoy the commodity that you're paying for,
yeah,
and go back and visit those memories. All those 42 months, because we focused on quality, they're filled with so many amazing memories,
yeah,
with not just he and I, but with our family and our kids, because the whole family went on this journey.
yeah,
And so, do I get sad? You better believe that, in a big time. But then all of a sudden I'll laugh because I'll remember
yeah,
some ridiculous thing that happened, and where we were at the time.
yeah,
And those two terms can't be separated,
yeah,
because if you don't grieve, you didn't have love.
yeah, yeah.
And the more you love, the more it hurts, and it hurts.
And what a gorgeous choice. I mean, so many people don't live that much when there aren't health issues, frankly, right? We go about our
Right.
day-to-day life with our to-do lists coming out the wazoo and never really grab it, embrace it. I wish she's going to kill me. I share this, but I worry sometimes with my daughter, that I think she's so worried about being hurt that she doesn't allow herself to really be vulnerable and be out there. And I'm like, you know, with with love it comes hurt, and with hurt there's great love. And my gosh, of all the hurt in the world, it is worth the love that you get the opportunity to experience. So
It is. I mean, there's no question.
yeah. Now, I think today we talk about like even hope more generally. I think, you know, it's probably fair to say a lot of people are losing hope. Today we're seeing, unprecedented levels of division and polarization. It's a complicated world. I'd love if you could share. I think you've got like 7 strategies for finding hope. If you don't mind breaking them down for us one at a time, and I may pop in and ask questions or interrupt or comment, but take the reins. I'd love to hear about these strategies
You know,
for hope.
the most important thing is to remember that hope is what you say it is. You have control,
Yeah.
and only you know what is hope. If you rely on another person to define your hope,
Yeah.
then you're never going to get that
Yeah.
satisfaction. You're in control of that. So really understanding what that is, what is your ultimate hope? And that's different than a wish.
Yeah.
And that's important. And secondly, write it down. Hope for me is what in this situation. And then communicate what that is so that people know this is what gives me hope. For
Yeah, and I want to stop there for 1 second, just because that I mean, you said that so casually, and I think it's so important, that writing it down piece. We don't do that often, whether it's our vision for the future or, as you say, our vision about what hope is. There is great power in writing things down. It registers differently in our brain. It triggers certain response mechanisms in our brain, and there's incredible power in writing it down and sliding into that communication piece as well. Vocalizing, putting it out into the world, it changes. It's kind of like an alchemy process or something. So I just wanted to really put a pin in that for our
And
listeners.
like post it on your computer
Yeah.
monitor,
Yeah.
so you don't forget.
Yeah.
When you lose hope means you forget what it means.
Yeah.
And so then you can't find it and other people can't give it
Yeah.
because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And likewise, the communication piece. I was so lucky that David defined it in such an easy way as to actually use the acronym so that I could remember. And every decision I had to make about him, I could go back to that.
Yeah.
And that's true as we try to support people we love. If you know what gives them hope
Yeah.
and what hope is not,
Yeah.
and that would be the other step. Hope is not means what is hopeless.
Yeah.
And if I know what makes you feel hopeless, I know what not to give you.
Yeah.
So for us, don't tell us you're going to give us, 6 more months.
Yeah.
Tell us you're going to make him feel better.
Yeah.
That's what's hope. Don't tell me, boss, if my hope is that I'm going to accomplish something great. Don't tell me all the obstacles in the way.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're going to support me in getting there. That's what's going to make it work. And then as a recipient, you have to let people help you.
Mm.
That's really important.
Yeah.
People try to give you the gift of hope, and you got to let that happen
Yes.
and accept that in order that you're not going to find it otherwise.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on that for a second. And I think this is across the board, but for women in particular,
Oh,
they're very conditioned not to receive. We don't even receive compliments well, right? Somebody says, "Oh, geez, you look great." I'm like, "Oh no, my hair's thinning," or this old dress. So we feel so conditioned to be the nurturers, the giver. Receive. I want you to really hear what Deborah's saying on that. Part of that hope as well as being open to receiving, both in Deborah's situation, whether you're dealing with a loved one with a terminal illness, but even if we broaden, sort of take the blinders off here and broaden that approach, these apply, that write it down. Heck, put your hopes and dreams on sticky notes on your bathroom mirror so that, if you're doing your proper, sort of toiletries where you're brushing your teeth in the morning and at bedtime, you'll be seeing it. And if they communicate it to the world, put it out there and be willing to receive hope and from others as well, be willing to receive gifts of support. So beautiful, beautiful template. And sorry, I cut you off.
and you're a better giver if you receive
Yes.
as well,
Yeah.
because you understand what it feels like to receive and makes you a better giver. Don't deprive somebody else of the gift
Yeah.
of hope. That I think that's really important.
Yeah. Lovely.
All sounds
I've
really
lost track of.
simple, but it's
Yeah,
not.
it takes work. It takes unpacking some of our conditioning and even hope, I think. Sadly, I think given sort of the political climate, a lot of people have given up on hope a bit. So it's why I really wanted to sort of have you back to chat about this piece around hope, because I think it's just so necessary in today's world. It's such a sort of an important message. And I've lost track of what number you're at. Where are you at now?
That was 7.
That was 7. Okay, perfect. Beautiful. Now, I often say negotiating our mindset, and I think that does come back a bit to some of the things we've been talking about here. I drive people crazy saying that's your first and most important negotiation, right? So if you don't mind sharing, what role did mindset play for you within dealing with the loss of your husband, with widowhood or whatever you want to call it?
It would become so easy to have said, woe is me,
Yeah.
poor me.
Yeah.
Look what I've got. This is so unfair. In AA, they call that stinking thinking.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. That is the easiest approach.
Yeah.
It's much harder to say, okay, what do we got to learn from this?
Yeah.
How am I going to grow from this? surely there's a positive here somewhere,
Yeah.
and redefine that situation. And in doing that, you're giving yourself power
Yes.
to be in control of your own situation rather than becoming a victim. And we learn really well how to become victims in our world.
Yes.
We don't always, especially as women, as you would say,
Yeah.
embrace the power
Yeah.
that is within us to determine our own fate.
Yeah.
And does that mean you don't have moments of hopelessness or moments? No, that doesn't. You're human, but that's how you pick yourself up
Yeah.
out of those moments
Yeah.
and take control, and in order to empower yourself to move forward.
I love it. Well, I'm smiling because literally, as you started talking, I jotted down the words power and victim, and boom, in the next breath, you address both. And again, just to put a pin for our listeners, because we are in a society that really seems to be elevating victimhood, across all generations, really buying into that. And I think it's very challenging to, if not impossible, to be framing and portraying yourself and feeling as if you're a victim, if you actually want to be able to embrace power, and not only empower, and by power, I don't mean control over their other people. I mean a powerful life force for yourself and hope. If you cast yourself as the victim, it is almost impossible to really embrace hope. So I think that's just a beautiful, and I like that you said, know that there'll be moments when you have hopelessness, and just allow yourself the
Right.
grace to be able to feel that and feel your way through it, and ultimately come out the other side embracing that hope as a powerful mindset shift. I think that's gorgeous. Now, I also often say that preparation is key in any sort of negotiation. And how can we prepare for sort of a tragic events or obstacles in our life while still holding on to hope?
Well, I think you prepare by not being in denial.
Yeah.
And denial's kind of on my brain this day. Too often we think we're preparing by just ignoring it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the opposite. Instead, learning everything you can is what prepares you to be
Yeah.
successful. My dad taught me that the best way to get what I want is to know the rules around a situation. Way to play the game, understand the rules, and then you can figure out how to get around the rules,
Yeah.
or to use the rules to your benefit.
Yeah.
But if you choose not to learn the rules, and not to and to pretend that there are no rules, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. We can pretend we're not going to die, but death and taxes are the two things that, like it or not, you're stuck
Yeah.
with. We've heard that for generations. And if you want to take control and have it the way you want it to be, then you need to think about that. That means you need to prepare. You're going to have documents that are written down. People are going to need to know what you want. We don't like to mess with durable powers of attorney
Yeah.
until we need one, and
Yeah.
we don't have one. Um, and we don't like to think about what's going to happen to us when we get frail. How would I be if the spot I think is nothing ends up being something? But within preparation gives you power and
Yeah.
knowledge in order to face a situation.
Yeah.
So
So
there's no
beautiful.
surprises. I hate surprises, and I hate if onlys. If only I had done this, if only I had done that, that's guilt, and it eats you
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there, I love that you shared sort of an insight you got from your father, and I really appreciate you sharing it with us. I know that's probably a little bittersweet for you right now. I understand from our earlier conversation before we jumped online that you're dealing with a significant health issue for your dad. So I hope that that memory of some learnings from your dad helps bring you sort of a smile and some strength as you're dealing with that, Deborah. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Now, you said you don't like surprises, but I'm going to ask you, what is one of the most surprising things maybe that you discovered while writing your book?
I became surprised that I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, being prepared was a lot, because I took a lot of classes on how to do it. I knew I was able to write scientifically,
Yeah.
but that's a whole lot different than sharing your raw self
Yes. Oh God. Yeah.
and the raw family secrets around all of that. And my kids gave me the grace to share the story and to share all the goods and bads about that story. But when I finished and I went back and I you get the copy and you open it up and you go back and you go, I did that?
Yeah.
Really? I did that. Which means you can do what you
Yeah.
put your heart to.
Yeah. That's
And
beautiful.
it was one of the best decisions I made towards my own personal recovery for sure.
Yeah. I like that you use the word raw. That really resonates with me because there is a difference. So, similar writing legal briefs, that's one thing for me in sort of a career of that. But boy, it is a whole other kettle of fish when you really lay your heart bare. And sometimes it happens without you even realizing it. I know you and I were talking before we came
Thank you.
online about journaling as well. And there can be some amazing insights that we get when we allow ourselves the gift of sort of writing and putting our thoughts down there. So, and again, as a lawyer, I think, often it's the nature of that profession where it's like it strips away hope. And I think for a lot of our listeners that's the case. So some beautiful and maybe just as a little nudge for any of our listeners who are a little resistant about that, who think it's too Pollyanna and doesn't serve you. What are some of the benefits of hope, of seeking hope, of living a hopeful life, would you say?
You know, when David was first diagnosed, it was like, where in the world is the hope in this, right?
Yeah.
Someone gave me a book called The Anatomy of Hope, which I recommend highly. And in there is a paragraph that talks about the hope for today lies in the hope and the success of yesterday.
Mhm.
And looking back in your life as to where did you find hope before?
Yeah.
And where did you find success? That can be the key
Yeah.
to making it work today.
Yeah.
And I had never thought about that before.
Yeah.
And now as for instance, I face this with my father, I go back to my experience with David, and there's hope that I can handle this because I know I've done it before.
Yeah.
And while different, there were some coping mechanisms there that I can share with myself now,
Yeah.
and that gives hope. And so never underestimate the success of the past and its relevance for the success for today.
That's beautiful. And even I think the power of choosing to embrace it. There's, I hadn't really thought of it in this way before, but we my daughter had open heart surgery and everything that could go wrong did. And we spent 3 months in critical care with her when she was young. This is many years ago, and happy to report she's great now against all odds. But all of the doctors and the cardiologist and the intensivist, nobody thought she was going to make it. They kept trying to convince us to sort of pull the plug and pull the plug. And I just had, and again, I think it's drawing on that past hopefulness. I just had an unshakable belief that she was going to be fine. And I didn't let anything rock that, like just did not let anything rock that. And against all odds, apparently, she came through. And not only did she come through, but they said she'd need surgery again at 2 years old, 5 years old, and as a teenager. And knock on wood, she has never needed any other surgery, and she was off all of the medications that they said would be lifelong within a year of leaving the hospital. So I think there's great power in hope, drawing on hope and keeping an unshakable belief that life is hopeful and worthy of embracing. So
For sure. And there are miracles. Miracles do happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And certainly you live a better life if you embrace that possibility. I think better than the cynicism that we often see in not just the practice of law, but I think in a lot of what the media is telling us about the world today, about business today, about how we define success, how we define power. So I think this is just beautiful messaging that you're sharing. And I'm wondering, Deborah, do you have, since we're talking about negotiation and framing hope even as a negotiation, do you have any sort of non-negotiable habits that you're committed to? Not even tied to hope necessarily.
What a great question. The whole idea for me about quality over quantity is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
My problem is it's so non-negotiable that sometimes I tend to put that on others as well,
Yeah.
with a lack of understanding as to why
Yeah.
you would do something that causes you so much pain when you're not going to get much gain out of it,
Yeah.
forgetting that that's somebody else's right.
Yeah.
But it's that valuable to me, and it was true before we did this, and it is just cemented now.
Yeah.
Give me a month of quality anything, over numbers of it.
Yeah.
And that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not into suffering that much.
Yeah. Well, I like that. We talk about a client that, for a non-negotiable habit, it doesn't get much better than that. I want quality of life and insist
Yep.
on it rather than, as we were saying, getting so wrapped up in that to do, get stuff done, that power, lawyers billing in 6-minute increments. Everything's got to be fast and efficient. And we pride ourselves on being, and we miss just embracing the quality of life, living life instead of, sort of pushing through life. And
I
I'm
mean, there are
curious,
times you just have to say time out.
yes,
I've got
yeah,
I don't want to live for this
yeah,
job.
yeah.
It's time to take time for me.
Yeah. And I mean, so many people, and certainly in my circle over the years, are like, oh, I don't have time for vacation. I don't have time. And we wear it like a badge of honor. I mean, where did we get so far astray? Right. And, I was talking earlier about power over. I went on my little mini rant there. I'd be curious, and how we define success, I think, is one of the problems. Success is all about just money and control and power over other. How deep would you define success, Deborah?
It's really an individual thing. I come from a long line of very resilient women,
Yeah.
great grandmothers and grandmothers and mothers. And I'm lucky I have two mothers. I have my mother and my stepmother, and they were both the most resilient women I knew.
Wow.
The resilience where you get knocked down, you get back up and you shake yourself off, and you know that tomorrow you're going to be better because of what happened today.
Yeah.
And we don't teach that enough. We
Yeah.
don't teach that, especially to women, enough, because usually it's men sometimes that are knocking us down.
Yeah.
And we got to stand up and know that tomorrow's different. The sun's going to come up, and you're going to be stronger, and there's no choice. You don't get to choose. You
Yeah.
just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and that's non-negotiable.
That's beautiful. I love that. And it's like the learning that comes from it. We so often resist anything. We don't take chances because we don't want to fail, right? And yet the growth happens in allowing yourself to fail and then holding it up and explore. I often think of it as like a crystal that you're holding up to see all the different ways that the light can refract through it and what you can learn from it. So, well, this has been lovely. I normally like to end by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? Doesn't have to be related to hope or anything we've talked about here today, Deborah, but just something that made you go, I've never thought of it that way before.
I've shared it before. I think my greatest mindset was to know how poignant it is to live something that you may know academically, or you may know intellectually.
Yeah.
To actually experience that yourself gives you an insight that you can't have
Yeah.
otherwise. And the old until I've walked a mile in your shoes saying, that's out, I really believe that. I can understand from an intellectual point of view why you feel the way you do, why you have the values you do, but I haven't lived in your shoes.
Yeah.
And it's a whole lot easier to cast questions when I haven't. But boy, you live through it, you have a whole new insight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's funny, for, the art of feminine negotiation, one of the cornerstones is empathy. And I really hammer about it. It's about truly putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, right? Try and see things, try and understand from their perspective. Doesn't mean you have to agree, but truly put yourself in that perspective. And, and I think that is also, ironically, I do think that's something that gives me hope, at least. I think gives the world a chance for hope when we truly are open ourselves to understanding other people's perspectives. So much conflict, whether in our legal system, in our political system, in the business world, on the global scene, it comes from people being so stuck in the rightness
Right.
of their position without being open to other perspectives. So, well, Deborah, this has been just such a lovely conversation. Where can people learn more about you and your book?
On Amazon, Legacies from the Living Room, Love Grief Equation, or Legacies from the livingroom.com, my website.
Beautiful. And we will make sure to put that in the show notes. And Deborah, just beautiful conversation with you here. Thank you so much for sharing on a subject that I no doubt is still very raw, and using that as a gift to give to other people. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I have no doubt you got tons of value from this episode. Please make sure to give the gift of sharing. Frankly, in this profession, it is easy to lose your sense of hope, and it can be a very soul-sucking business. I think sharing messages of hope is one way that we can all help uplift each other to have a better practice of law and practice with more purpose. So please make sure to do that. Subscribe if you haven't done that. And before we sign off today, would love to share a few ways that we can work together. I teach both seasoned and early stage attorneys a better way to practice so that they can be more authentic, less battle worn, and ultimately significantly more effective, both personally and professionally. So if that sounds interesting to you or for the lawyers in your firm, check it out at practicingwithpurpose.org. You can book a consultation, just learn a little bit more about what I've got to offer and reach out to me. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose. Find a better way to practice law so you can rekindle that passion while still making a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time, take care.